We got work to do. Spider-Man No Way Home's right around the corner. I can't watch or talk about that movie without first revisiting and talking about this one. First, letting you know right out the gate, this video was brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform to build your online presence and run your business. Gonna talk about that a little later, but first, we procrastinated enough. The time has come. So Spider-Man 2 came out in 2004, directed by Sam Raimi. It's the sequel to the 2002 blockbuster smash. Sam Raimi's Spider-Man at the time held the record for highest grossing opening weekend of all time. So needless to say, among me and my fellow cinephiles out there, we Spidey fans, the excitement was off the charts for this one. When Spider-Man 2 came out, it was just, the conversation was, it is hands down the best comic book movie out there ever made. I mean, granted, it was back when comic book movies were still kind of niche. It's not like they were the spearheads of cinema, but it definitely was like Spider-Man 2 and other comic book movies that are still great, but dude, Spider-Man 2 was awesome. There's just no other way to say it. It's one of those movies that actually gets better the older I get, the more I appreciate it on different levels. Because quite frankly, a lot of the swings it took, it absolutely knocked it out of the park. There's a lot that works with Spider-Man 2. Exciting action sequences, check. Compelling and interesting character storytelling showing Peter Parker and the difficulties of balancing his life as Peter Parker and Spider-Man, check. Harry Osborn becoming more obsessed with Spider-Man, thus paving the way for him becoming the next Green Goblin, check. But, right, I didn't feel much of the payoff in the third movie with that. But in terms of the second movie and taking him to the next phase of that, absolutely nailed it in Spider-Man 2. Layered and compelling villain in Dr. Otto Octavius, who's a sympathetic villain, if not a victim of his own genius, check. But among all of this next one is the most important takeaway of Spider-Man 2. I can't stress this enough. Spider-Man 2 was the moment we learned Sony Spider-Man trailers absolutely positively spoil the movie.
Let's see who's behind the mask.
Why would they show that in their trailer? I thought that when I first saw the trailer. I think that now. It's like they've been trying to outdo that ever since. They're like, all right, we gotta beat that one time we totally spoiled Spider-Man 2. All right, let's just keep doing that with movie trailers. First off, what are we coming for? You know, Spider-Man action, sure. Actually, this movie is much more layered than that, but it being a Spider-Man movie, yeah, I'll talk about the action, though to its core, it's absolutely positively a character piece. But Spider-Man action movie, right? We love some Spider-Man action. This movie has some great Spider-Man action sequences. Some of the best among live action Spider-Man, absolutely. Also iconic. There's some iconic imagery in this movie. That scene where he's trying to stop the train. I have seen moments in other Spider-Man movies, video games, animated movies, they all throw back to that moment. It's a very iconic scene. You know what the thing is for me? Like, the nitpick, the gripe, is the fact that Doc Ock takes more than a punch from Spider-Man. Because it wouldn't happen. You know, it would just be one punch like... Good evening. In today's news, Dr. Otto Octavius is in a coma after suffering one punch from Spider-Man. It's unknown as to whether or not the good doc will come out of this coma, but if he does, the doctors say, and I quote, "Chewing solid foods will be a distant memory." I don't care. It's a thing that makes me chuckle because it is funny, but also there's so much more to love about this movie. I don't give two fucks. And an important thing that this movie did for me, like, I never saw Doc Ock as one of my favorite villains. I never saw him as, I mean, you're going up against Green Goblin, Venom, Carnage, you know, as a 90s Spider-Man fan. So Venom and Carnage were absolutely on the top of that list. Green Goblin as well, you know, there were other Spider-Man villains I liked. So when I heard Doc Ock was in this movie, I was like, okay, we'll see. He's not gonna be better than the Goblin. Then that first teaser trailer came out and Doc Ock just smacks that car and the car flips up and over itself. I was like, oh. Well, that was pretty awesome. And that's what they do so well in this movie. Doc Ock, when he's throwing down, when he's fighting Spider-Man, when he's building his machine, he's doing so many things at once. He's like the ultimate multitasker villain. One of the arms is lighting his cigar, he's building his machine. It was just optimal usage of this character. Sam Raimi definitely had a plan. He's like, no, I want to show Doc Ock, but I want to show what someone can do. They have 4 mechanical arms welded to their back. Also, they're the reason for his corruption, so Dr. Otto Octavius, to his core, isn't evil. Otto Octavius was cool. He's bonding with Peter Parker. You know, he's just a man of science. He wanted to help the world. Then these AI arms are corrupting his brain. And I wasn't ready for that when I watched this movie. Sam Raimi's direction and Alfred Molina's superb acting, they worked together to bring this character to life in a way I just never thought possible. They made more than a Spider-Man villain. They made a complex character. Villain's just a title at this point. Really, he's a Spider-Man tragedy. This movie absolutely changed how I viewed Doc Ock forever. Cherry on top, simple pleasures in this movie. I love that OR horror movie scene, you know, when the arms are just tearing these doctors apart. And Sam Raimi being like, okay, I'm gonna go back to my horror movie roots. It's a pretty epic scene. But to its core, Spider-Man 2 did something unexpected that is the thing that I think makes it age well, and that is it tells a character story, someone who's struggling with their identity. Because you look at Peter Parker and why he became Spider-Man. Peter Parker became Spider-Man out of this sense of obligation, you know, with great power comes great responsibility, a lesson that his Uncle Ben told him. And when he ignored that, Uncle Ben died. So I was like, okay, I can't have that happen to other people, plus Uncle Ben would want it this way, I have this power, I have a responsibility, so now I'm Spider-Man. But the point is, he's doing that for someone else. You know, he's doing that out of a sense of obligation to his uncle and his lessons. That'll get you on the saddle, absolutely. But this movie takes it a step further. It has the guts to show someone question whether or not they should remain this superhero. The fact that it showed Peter Parker doubt this, he's struggling with himself, you know, he has no sense of himself. He has no sense of him living his own life. That will make you question whether or not you want to remain Spider-Man. I love the fact that this movie deals with that. And then Spider-Man No More arc. He gives it up. He's like, all right, done. Can we blame him? Absolutely not. It's another thing Sam Raimi does really well. The comic books had a lot of comic books to show how hard it is just to be Peter Parker, you know, to balance this life of Peter Parker and Spider-Man. This movie's like, we don't have that much time, so we really need to show it in under 2 hours. So there's not a lot of time there. I love the fact that Sam Raimi was like, we'll illustrate that by showing all these instances where Peter Parker just gets the shaft. All these little instances, you ever feel like that? You ever feel like a bunch of little annoyances that just chip away at you are worse than one big thing happening?
Huh, brother?
Yeah, well, Peter Parker's dealing with all these little instances chipping away at him. Also, big things are happening. Yeah, this dude's absolutely gonna be like, I need to make my life easier. I need to minimize. Fuck it. I'm out. Simple life for me. Peter Parker's back, baby. Spider-Man no more. And that right there, that core lesson, that core human experience, that human lesson is the reason Spider-Man 2 remains top tier for me. The difference between doing something for someone else and feeling obligated and actually living a life for yourself. And showing that coming of age arc where Peter Parker is no longer Spider-Man out of obligation to Uncle Ben. He's Spider-Man because he chooses to be. The scene where he goes into that burning building and saves that little kid with no powers whatsoever just shows that that's who he is. He's a person who helps people. He helps people because that's his core. Him being Spider-Man by the end of this movie, he's no longer Spider-Man out of a sense of obligation to his dead uncle. He's Spider-Man because that's his life that he chooses for himself. At least that's how I assess it. I feel like there's a whole conversation that people can have about this movie as to whether or not, like, well, is that where Peter Parker's mind is by the end of this movie? But that's how I see it. And that's very fulfilling for me, you know? It's very layered. I went into this movie thinking, okay, we're gonna have a great Spider-Man smashing time. And I walked out of Spider-Man 2, I remember being like, it was great. I do need to unpack that, though. There's a lot more there than I actually thought I was signing on for. And that's why we love Spider-Man 2. And that's why Spider-Man 2 is awesome-tacular. I guarantee you this is going to be one of those videos that I upload. I'm immediately going to be met with, oh man, I should have talked about this. I should have talked about that. That is where you come in, my friends. I leave that to you. Pick up where I failed. Anything I forgot to talk about, anything that hit you in Spider-Man 2 that I didn't talk about, absolutely. Comment below, talk about it. And I will answer your big question right now before you ask it in the comment section. My personal favorite Spider-Man movie for me, yes, it's Spider-Man 2. And now's the part where I send that lovely love to the sponsor of this video. This video is brought to you by Squarespace. Truly the all-in-one platform to build your online presence and run your business. Buying a domain from Squarespace is simple, no hidden fees, no price hikes. You can present videos from YouTube, Vimeo, and Animoto on your Squarespace site. As a person who works with video, it's important. You can use Squarespace's professional portfolio designs to present your professional work professionally. And I will always love that every design automatically comes with a unique mobile experience that matches the overall style of your website. So go to squarespace.com for your free trial, and when you're ready to launch, click the link below, go to squarespace.com/JeremyJohns, save yourself 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain using promo code JOHNS. And thank you once again to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. I do appreciate it. Love. All right, so Spider-Man 2, have you seen it? What did you think about it? What do you love about Spider-Man 2? Again, that I totally forgot to talk about, because there's a lot. But whatever you think, comment below, let me know. And as always, if you like what you've seen here and you want to see more, click right here to see more.